Xenos Rampant. Last time we tried to play a little miniature war game in the Forgotten Ruin universe. Kapow, that's this guy right here. This is book 2 in an 8-book series by Jason Onspach and Nick Cole. Wonderful series. Ranger Company gets stuck in a land that looks a little something like this. We tried marrying Dragon Rampant and Xenos Rampant, and boy howdy, it was just not a match made in heaven. A lot of questions, a little quirky. I realized, hey, you stand back and look at Xenos Rampant. Let's turn the page here a little bit. You can actually use lesser xenomorphs, greater xenomorphs, and more to the point, there's this thing here, primitive infantry, which is perfect. You even have bow infantry in here. So why am I messing around with Dragon Rampant when Xenos Rampant has everything a guy could need for marrying his fantasy with his other fantasy in a lab coat? Particularly given that, in fact, there's some of these scenario settings that they got in here work really well for that. But they also have the alien things, and today we're going to be using, I'm vamping here as I try to find it. We're going to be using LNOPQRST. Well, first of all, we're going to be using psychic powers. After all, PFC Kennedy is, a bit of a savant and a bit of a smart guy. He may be a member of Ranger Company, but he also likes his dungeons and he likes his dragons. So he's the guy that suddenly is the expert that the big hardened killers go to find out what the heck a saving throw is. But we also have this thing here. Look at this. Undead. Which is what we're going to be using today. Because we're book 2, Hit and Fade. This is, and also, I forgot one of the most important characters in all of the books. One of the best characters of all. And of course, I'm talking about Jabba. That's this little fella down here. Jabba is a goblin. I hate to give away too much of the plot of these books. Couple of things. PFC Kennedy, I already ruined it. He's a spellcaster. The Ranger Company does not just change the world of Forgotten Ruin. Forgotten Ruin changes them. I'm not going to spoil what happens to PFC. Talker, he's the main point of view. He's kind of, if you're familiar with Black Company, he's kind of like the Croaker of the book. He's the chronicler, linguistics expert. I can tell you that much. I think I already said that last time. So we got 2 squads today. This squad over here, this is the heavy weapons team with Sergeant Kurtz, Brum, Soprano, Rico, and of course their ammo carrier, one of the indigenous. Jabba is a goblin that gets adopted by Ranger Company. And Jabba really likes an energy drink called Rip It, so today's mission is going to feature that as well. This other squad over here, this is a light infantry squad. So we got heavy infantry with the increased squad size, strength 10. I know there's only 5 of them, but they have strength 10. And they do have, They have heavy weapons, so every 6 that they roll when they shoot does 2 hits. This is the mobile squad. This is light infantry. They have run off into the woods, and they have secured a book that I think, I'm only halfway through the second book, I think it's basically the Necronomicon, and I think it's going to start messing with Talker's head. That's not a spoiler. That's my conjecture based on where I am in the book today. This is a light infantry squad. They were tasked with going out and procuring a high-value target. They are now on their way back to the front lines, to friendly lines, and they have to cross the table, but the only support they have is these guys, and then they do have an off-board element. I'm going to allow them to call a fire support every turn, because we're only looking at a total of 16 points on this side of the board. 17 points. The light infantry here, they also, in addition to the firefight and go to ground, which everybody has, so they can return fire. Not a big deal, because we only have 1 bow-mounted unit among the skeletons, but then they also have conceal. So, they are guerrillas, so when they're in soft cover, they treat that as hard cover, basically is what that amounts to. And then, as I said, PFC Kennedy, he has got psychic powers, he's a wizard, he's fairly early in his wizarding career, he's only just met a mentor, so he's only got 2 powers right now. Conceal, which, if it's successful, then you can only be targeted by groups, enemies that are within 6 inches, and Confound, which will suppress a target. But because he is in this squad has free movement, and they're trying to cross the table. If they stop to let Kennedy pop off a spell, they're not going to be able to move that turn, and that's going to be a problem. Because now let's take a look at the guys in the back here. We've got a couple of great big honking skeleton giants here, and one of them is even a Cyclops giant. Those are going to be classed as greater xenomorphs. They're terrifying. They're also undead. They also have wild charge, so they're going to get stuck in, and they are really tough. They have strength. They only have 5 strength points. In the back, we've got a unit of zombies and a unit of skeletons. Statistically, they're the same. They are both primitive infantry. However, everybody on the side of the undead is, naturally enough, undead. We'll talk about what that means when we get there. Basically, they have a courage of 0. They are never suppressed, unless they are confounded. And then what else we got? Oh, right, these guys, strength 10. So the 2 in the back, strength 15. The guys with the bows, now those bows only have a range of 6 inches. They have strength 10. I've got them on sabbat bases, 15 dudes, 10 dudes, so it should be pretty easy. Now let's take a look at the terrain and the mission parameters for success for both of the 2 sides. Our light infantry squad for the Ranger Company starts over here in this clearing. All the Ranger Company has to do is get, we'll say Kennedy. If he can get across the table and behind the heavy weapons squad into this clearing here, then the Ranger Company wins. They are opposed by the greater xenomorph and some zombies in that corner, and down in this opposite corner, we've got another xenomorph and more skeletons. Ranger Company takes the first activation. Free move order for our light infantry. They're going to move 2 inches to get up into these woods. Remember, their armor goes up from a 2 to a 3 when they are in the woods. I'm not sure which way we're going to race them. We'll have to wait and see what the skeletons do. Look at that. You can just barely see Jabba's head sticking up above the grass. Speaking of grass, everything on the board is classed as rough going. It slows movement by half, with the exception of this pond, which cannot be moved across. The only things that block line of sight through the terrain piece, not into it. The hill. This skeleton. Man, you thought Mr. Cyclops was a giant skeleton. Look at the size of this monster. Glad Ranger Company showed up after he went down. Now, the woods do block line of sight, and that's basically everything on that side. Then we do have a couple of cliffs over here. You can see they're pretty low. The vertical scale is very much depressed. It's the opposite of exaggerated. Can't fire across those. You can't see across them, but I think everything else. Now, when you fire across a piece of terrain, like these rocks over here, which is what we're going to do, our heavy weapon squad, Jabba, bring up some more ammo, would you please? By the way, I should point out that our heroes over here, they're carrying a case of Rip It. Jabba's a thirsty lad. He loves those energy drinks. Right, so we're going to open fire on these guys. And because we're firing across a soft cover and then into a soft cover, we're going to give these guys an increased armor of 2. And we are going to target that greater xenomorph. So we got to roll 10 dice. Firing at over 9 inches means we are at -1 on the 2 hit. Normally they would be shooting on, what's our shoot value for the heavy infantry? Heavy infantry do not have to roll to activate. They automatically shoot. They're only going to be hitting on 6s. Their shoot score is normally a 5, I think. Can't read my own handwriting here. Yep, normally a 5, but because it's beyond 9 inches, it'll be, they are only hitting on 6s, but remember 6s count as 2 hits. We get a total of 1, 2, 3 hits. Oh, 4 hits altogether. Now, the way this works, they need to score 6 hits to do 1 point of damage. The greater xenomorph has an armor of 4. Because he's undead, if they're fighting melee, extra hits are rounded up. Because we're shooting, we will ignore the extra hits. That means that these 6 hits are going to do a total of 1 strength point of damage to the big Cyclops. That will force a morale check on his part. Now, he has a morale of, and this is pointless at this point, because this morale check is going to be at, oh, you know what else we need to do? We're going to designate the other giant skeleton as our general. So that's the other reason they're firing over here, because he's the soft target. So we roll, we get a 4, -1 is a 2, and then we have -1 for this, and then we, because we are above 0, he will stay in the fight. All of our undead have movement as their free activation. The greater xenomorphs can move a total of 5 inches, and oh, they are also fleet. So we're going to drop him up there. He's moved a little bit too far. We're going to give it to him. The other guys over here are primitive infantry. They only have a movement of 4, and they are going to goon swarm the heavy infantry down here. So this whole pad is going to move 4 inches, and since we cheated a little too much for the first guy, we're going to cheat them back just a little bit. We'll call it even. So they've moved 4 inches closer. I forgot to call in fire support on turn 1. We're going to have to start doing that on turn 2. Technically, in Xenos Rampant, if you're playing a 24-point battle, you need to have 3 units. I've only got 2 on the board. We're going to call that spotter, offboard artillery. We're going to call that our 3rd unit. But that's the one that we're going to have to roll, because that only activates on, I believe it's a 6-up every turn. Meanwhile, these 2 units, so we get to move 5 with this guy. Remember, you have to stay the width of the ruler away from your buddy, and these Sabbat bases aren't great because they don't allow you to kind of, smush and morph the, amoeba-like your little war bands. But it makes it go so much quicker, doesn't it, when we can just drop those down like that. So it becomes now it's turn 2, so we can roll to see if we fire for effect. And we're going to try to drop artillery on this guy. With a result of a 9, we're successful. This is an 8-up to activate. We rolled a 9, so we still did. Because we did so, we are going to make a shoot action against this guy right here. And we have to do it within 1 unit that's in line of sight. And, now that I think about it, this guy is probably, if we can draw a straight line from our boys, yeah, he is in line of sight. So we're going to roll 10 dice. If we roll more 1s than hits, then the player being targeted may select a different unit within 6 inches of the intended target, 3 inches, which means we're just going to say he may to take the hit instead. So that's the trick is, if you're too close, right? So here we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can either take the hit on our big guy or our little guys now. We can move the template because we blew it. We only got 1 hit, and we can remove 1 of these guys instead. Because this is shooting, we don't round up. We're going to leave it on our guy, and that did no damage whatsoever. We'll try again next round. Our runners are going to move their foot. Well, it's going to cost 1 inch to get out of the woods, and so they only have 3 inches of movement remaining. We'll move them up to here, all 5 of them. And then we'll take a shoot action against these zombies that are getting a little too close to our heavy support. Again, it's a free activation. Are we within 9 inches? There's 9 inches. Our nearest guy is within 9 inches. So we will be rolling to hit. These guys normally have an armor of 1. Because we're firing through the terrain, that armor goes up to 2. And because and again, we're shooting, so it doesn't matter. So armor of 2, we are hitting on 5s. So with the armor of 2, we only get 1 kill, and that's that guy right there. That does force a morale check. Hoping to roll a 1 on 2d6. I don't even know why we rolled, to be honest with you. Automatic success, at least unless and until we do at least 2 hits. These guys are just going to keep coming at us. It's now the undead turn. We're going to roll to make a move action for the bowman. And man, maybe we don't need to bring them on at all. I'm getting kind of nervous about this already. We have to roll a 6-up to bring them on. So 3, they do not come on this turn. These guys are going to move 4 inches, and that's going to put them right here. Our big guy is going to be able to move 5 inches, and we'll cheat him back just a little bit to make up for the lost ground from last turn. These units all have, they call it fleet of foot. In this game, it's called open order. Over on this side of the battlefield, we're going to bring our spearmen over 4 inches to here. We're going to bring our big guy up to there. And we're going to basically hit our squad with the 2 heavy xenomorphs and use our swarm attacks to overwhelm the heavy infantry. There's no line of sight now, so there won't be any wild charges out of these 2 big fellas. That's the end of turn number 2. Moving on to turn number 3. Can we drop fire support down on one of these guys? With a result of a 9, we can, and we're going to designate the leader unit once again. We'll try to whittle. No, you know what? I think we need to whittle this guy down. Yeah, we're going to hit that guy. And we're going to roll. You know what I forgot, though? These guys, it doesn't matter what I forgot. It's over. We're hitting on 4s, and we only need to get 4 successes to deliver a wound point. And the nice thing about hitting this guy over and over is that if we could do 1 more wound point, even though it's not going to drive him because the penalty does not persist from turn to turn. If we do 1 more wound to this guy, he'll be at half strength. He'll only be rolling 5 dice when he attacks. So we like that. So we moved these guys. This is turn number 3, so we can move them another 4 inches. And this might get a little ugly. Except, you know what? If we bring them, we're going to bring them 3 inches. We're going to bring them just inside the woods right here. Because that does increase their armor by 1. So they're going to be at an armor of 3. They'll be in much better stead to weather any melee attacks. Then we got to do our heavy board. On the last turn, I forgot. 6s count as 2 hits. They're opening fire at the nearest unit. That unit is no longer in soft cover. They have an armor of 1. We're going to roll 10 dice. 6s count as 2s. So we get a total of 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 hits altogether. And that's going to be absolutely devastating. In fact, with just the, let's see, so 3, it's going to remove all of these guys. With an armor of 1, they aren't going to stand up for very long. And because we did 9 hits, in fact, that might eliminate them from the board altogether. We roll. We get a result of a 10. Oh, that's impressive. Because we have a positive number, they don't just disappear. If we had rolled an 8, a negative result, the rest of these guys would have withered away. They are going to be able to make an attack roll. However, on the next turn, in fact, now is the time to do it. In order to make that attack roll, they have to activate. Movement is free, sure, but the primitive infantry are going to have to pass an activation at 5 up. With a 3 up, they do not. In Xenos Rampant, that does not end your turn. Let's check the distance on that greater xenomorph, the Cyclops. He is greater than 5 inches away, so he'll move the full 5 inches to right here, and that's where he stops. This guy is also greater than 5 inches away. He's going to stop right there. And then, as I said, these spearmen are going to move 4 inches to here. Got to keep our heavy infantry distracted. We forgot to roll for our bowmen. And this time the bowman will appear on the board. We'll put him within 3 inches of one of the corners. On a 1, 2, 3, it's on that side. On a 4, 5, 6. So it will be on the opposite side of the table, 3 inches in. Probably not great for them, but we'll have to see what happens, won't we? Now, we're going to roll for fire support. We have to be very careful. We're going to drop fire support on this unit here. If we drop it on either of these 2 big boys or this unit, then rolling too many 1s will land it on our head. Although, if we don't roll at least an 8, hey, look at that, we did. So we're hitting these guys on 4s or better. The mortars are in fine form today. Again, this is still just shooting, but hey, that's not so bad. For every success that we get, with an armor value of just 1, we will remove 1 figure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the whole back rank of spearmen, plus 1. And if we get lucky here, we're going to roll 2d6. And we are hoping for a 5 or less. No, on a 6 or less, they're gone. If we roll an 8, they pass their test. They are not battered. They are still in the fight. Now we have to decide what to do with these guys. We're going to go ahead and move them, let's see, they're 4 inches away from this point, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to take advantage. Rather than trying to befuddle one of those guys, we're going to leave, I don't know, we'll leave one of these guys. I guess, I think that's Sergeant Brum over there. No, Sergeant Kurtz is the guy that's in charge of that squad. And then that's going to be it for our Ranger Company. Let's start over here. Can we activate these last four zombies. On a 3, we cannot. They're not going to attack. These skeletons can move 4 inches. Yeah, I know they're moving through the rough going. They are in open order, although it doesn't look like it on the little sabot base I'm using. And then our bowmen, now let's check. Yeah, our bowmen can move for free too. They're off screen right now, but I'm just going to go ahead and move them to keep them in the fight. This is where we want to look a little closer. We really probably should have started with this. The turn order says, do your wild charges first. What can I tell you? With the camera set up, sometimes I do things a little out of order. The other things wouldn't have make any impact on the decision here anyway. We'll start with our wounded guy. Now, he does still get his full 10 attacks. But in order to attack, he has to roll a 5 or better. Grainer Xenomorphs, he does not. So our leader of men down here, he needs to roll a 5 or better, and he does. So he comes barreling in, and we got ourselves a melee, fellas. Greater Xenomorphs are terrifying. They attack and they hit on 3s or better. Does our light infantry have any ability? They can firefight. That doesn't do them any good. Basically, their armor goes to 4 on this one. So we're looking for 3s, and if we get 4 or more, and that's a really good roll. For every 4 hits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we are going to lose 2 of our boys. All right. Now we have to make a morale check at -2. 10 minus 2 is 8. They will be fine. They're still in the fight. Our Xenomorph has to back off because we're going to back him off. I think it's just that 1.5 inches, like so. And that's going to be it for the Undead turn. Now we're going to run away. And I know, well, we got to try and get back here. We're going to stay just inside. Our light infantry is probably going to eat another attack. Oh, you know what I forgot? Our light infantry gets to counterattack. What is their, on this melee, they get to roll 2. Now, they're not great. Their defense is 5, and they need to get 4 hits of their own. But they're rolling all 10 dice. They get a grand total of 1 hit. And because this is melee, remember, we round up. That does do 1 wound to the leader here, who has to make a morale check at -1. And, oh, look, it's a positive number, so he's going to be okay, because remember, he's still undead. Okay. Hey, we'll take the wound. We'll take it. That might, sometimes that one little bit makes all the difference in the world. So on their turn, they run away. Well, not run away. I mean, we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to get around, right? And here they are. Now we're going to try for fire support. We've been doing really well. 8 is going to be successful. And once again, we're nominating this target for every success. Every 4 or better, we'll remove a figure. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 more go away, and that helps to kind of clear the path. Rolling for morale, we get a positive number. 7 minus 4 is 3. So these 5 guys will stick around, and our heavy infantry have to fire at these 4 guys. If we can get a pair of 6s, we will eliminate that threat. And we didn't get it. In fact, we only got 1 kill. Is that right? What an embarrassing roll. Their shoot value is indeed just a 5 up. And on all 10 dice, they only got 1 success. So at least 1 zombie goes down. And I think we're done with the ranger turn. So we'll see if these guys can complete their charge. They finally do. Now they charge in, and they will be able to strike with 5 dice. It's only 5 this time because they're at half strength. They have an attack of primitive infantry. They're hitting on 3 up. They get 1, 2, 3, 4 hits against guys with an armor of 3. So we will remove 1 figure, and we will make a morale check at -1. 6 minus 5, -1, +1 because the leader is in that unit, means that is a 6. Our ranger company has a courage of 4 up. They're fine. And not only that, but now they get to counterattack. And I don't think they have a very good defense value. Remember that this is, each of these bases, each of these undead probably counts as 3 or 4 skeletons, where each of these guys only counts as, well, this is a strength 10. You know what? That's a good point. The 1 point of damage they took, each of these figures has 2 wounds. So I'm going to drop a wound counter down on that. And when I take a second wound, I'll remove a figure. You can use 5 figures to represent strength 10. You're allowed to do that. As I was saying, they have a defense value of 4. Oh, that's pretty good, man. So if we just roll 3 4s, 4, 4, 4, this unit is now eliminated. And that's the fun thing about Undead is that you round up. But if all you have are guys with 1 armor, it doesn't really matter. It's like a penalty. You get the free bonus of always passing your morale checks without any real penalty to the figure. A little bit min-maxing, is that cheap? I don't care. Now we got to figure out these guys. Oh, these guys are going to be able to move to right there. Now they don't have enough movement to get stuck in and melee, but that's okay because they'll be able to do that in the next turn. Do our bows move on us? Oh, they actually automatically move. So I'm going to move, once again, I'll move them 3 inches off screen, just trying to get them close enough. Because they have primitive weapons, they only have a range of 6. Before they, normally they have 5s, beyond a range of 6 inches. It's 12 inches, but I'm playing half scale. 6 inches, so that's it, man. That's as far as they can shoot. So where they're standing right now, up to there, they're hitting on 5s. Anywhere else, and I think these guys, that's it. They can only shoot within 6 inches. We're trying to get them close enough to unleash on these guys. But we do have a couple of wild charges we still need to do. We'll start with a guy that's got 2 wounds, and he will charge in. Remember, he's fleet. He doesn't care about the hard cover, or about the soft cover. These guys, I think they, you know what? They're light infantry, so they do. Their armor goes to 4. Once again, they are gorillas. So if we roll for our big boy, our undead Cyclops is hitting on 3s. He gets a total of 5, 6, 7, 8 hits, and he's going to eliminate 2 more figures. We make our morale check, and we're still in the game, but now the combat is simultaneous, so we do get to roll all of our dice. And with the light infantry, our defense value is 5. We are looking for 4 hits, and that pushes this guy to less than half of his strength points. He has to make a morale check, which he passes because he only took 1 strength damage. And, oh, no, I forgot. In Xenos Rampant, he's got to make a morale check. At -1, he rolls 1 die. When you're at half strength, you only roll 1 die. These guys are supposed to roll 1 die at -2, and that's it. Game over. In my tabletop encounter, the greater xenomorphs were just too strong. We weren't able to get a real good fire for effect on these guys with the mortars, and unfortunately, the forces of darkness have killed PFC Kennedy, they killed Talker, and, you know, this is why Ranger Company are heroes, because they do in the real world what I can't even do on the tabletop. We inflicted some damage. They'll have to pull back to the forward operating base, which is, well, I don't want to spoil it. It's kind of fun. Let's just say that some guys that from our world that are not as heroic as the Ranger Company built a castle. Oh boy, that's a spoiler alert. And unfortunately, they weren't nearly as heroic. But you'll learn more about that when you get yourself a copy of this wonderful book. They can't all be winners, guys. I think this was a very balanced encounter. Instead of using light infantry, you might want to use somebody or even purchase something like Open Order, because having to either choose between being exposed or moving very slowly really cost us in this one, particularly when your opposition force can basically ignore terrain for movement purposes. If you're doing any kind of a chase fight and your opposition can just ignore terrain, you are really behind the 8 ball. We were also kind of behind the 8 ball with the points-wise. So in retrospect, I think maybe a more balanced encounter would be to eliminate one of those greater xenomorphs, and go with an even point spread, and then this might have been a little bit of a closer run thing. But you also see how modern weapons can absolutely chew to pieces primitive infantry, whether they be undead or I wouldn't say orcs, but maybe cavemen. You know, that could be appropriate. That's all I got for you today. Pick up a copy of Forgotten Ruin. You won't regret it. I'm praying for you.